This guy had an interesting day yesterday, CBS Sports Radio colleague, and we bring him on now. His name is Pete Mundo. So, Pete, let me set this up for everybody, even though we referenced it at the start of the day, at some point in the first hour. Pete also, in addition to doing updates and some other stuff for the network here, he has a website called Heartland College Sports. It's a Big 12 focus website. And, you know, what you like to do, among many things, is, you know, get with an old Big 12 athlete, chronicle their career, talk about what's current. Is that a fair assessment of what the website entails?
BT, that is absolutely what it entails. Articles, podcasts, and interviews with former Big 12 athletes, coaches, everything else.
Okay,
Now,
so
and they know, Pete, that you're talking about their college careers for the most part. I mean, some of them are superstars in the NFL and other sports, but you're talking about college, right?
Absolutely. The goal is to, you know, recap their college careers, guys you haven't heard from in 5, 6, 10 years, and talk about, you know, big games they played in, and then what they're up to now, either in football, or a lot of them are doing other things in life, financial advisors,
sure.
You know, just different things. So it's kind of I think, a fascinating way to touch base with guys that people haven't heard from in a while.
Like somebody like Josh Heupel, who didn't play in the NFL, but I actually think he has a sporting goods store, if I have that right. He has some professional business endeavor, guys like that. So give us a few of the bigger names, and then we'll get to this problem with the Redskins guy and Colt McCoy. Give us some of your A-listers that you've had the last 3 or 4 months. Give us a couple names.
So, you know, we've had Ryan Broyles, of course, star wide receiver at Oklahoma, spent a little time with the Lions. He's now a guy that is, you know, involved heavily in the financial world in Oklahoma City in real estate.
Right.
Colin Klein, a guy who was a quarterback and led Kansas State to a 10-0 start a couple of years ago. He's an offensive coordinator at Northern Iowa. Zach Robinson, quarterback at Oklahoma State. Graham Harrell, quarterback at Texas Tech. So a lot of big names that Big 12 fans will know.
No doubt. Well, we know them, and we're not even, you know, devout Big 12 fans. So you had Colt McCoy on. I guess some of the websites, Deadspin, Awful Announcing, they picked this up. And if we have this right, Pete, you actually sent an email to Tony Wiley, who's the head of the Redskins PR, alerting him, hey, here's what I want to do, a little college, a little pro, a little this. So you told him what the interview was going to entail, right?
Absolutely. And the point I made clear, the whole email was not shown in the Awful Announcing article, but I said we're a Big 12-based outlet. I'm going to talk about UT. I'll throw in some NFL because, of course, that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah, not doing it well, but
yeah, exactly. But this is a look back on a guy that, you know, was the winningest quarterback out of Texas.
So talking about his time at Texas should have been fair game. Now, it turns out, and let's advance the story, after you do this interview and you ask him things that every person who has ever put on a football helmet is asked about your concussions, if you had any. He had a famous one, by the way, in the national championship game. And then if you'd let your son play football because of the now exposure of the dangers of concussions, and he took offense to that?
He lost his mind. I mean, the interview, I thought it went really well. We were laughing. If you listen to it, it was a softball interview. I start off the interview asking about Redskins training camp, which, frankly, I don't really care about, and most of our listeners don't care about, but I thought it was the right thing to do.
Well, if it was Kirk Cousins, we might.
Yes.
Yeah, but to your point,
exactly.
I got you.
Now, wait, Colt was upset, Pete? Or Colt was upset, or the PR guy was upset?
Yeah, good question.
What I got is I got a call 2 days ago from Tony Wiley, and first off, I didn't know the number. I pick it up from Virginia, and he just starts laying into me. Colt came up to me today. He's asking me who you are, why you're asking these questions. He was blindsided by me asking him about the 2010 BCS national title game where he left after 4 plays with an injury, a shoulder injury that affected his career. And I said to him, listen, you knew and he knew this was – and I talked to Colt before we started recording. So we're going to talk about Texas. It's a Big 12 site. This is why you're on. And at that point, he could have said, listen, I don't want to talk about the title game. He should have said that because that's the biggest game of his career to date, and he got hurt in it. Why he wouldn't want to talk about it, I don't really get.
All right, let me ask you this.
He didn't want to touch on it.
Real quick, Pete Mundo with us here on CBS Sports Radio. Pete's one of our colleagues, and this has taken on a real national feel. All the big websites. You know, by the way, this is not bad for you, Pete. You do know that, right? This is probably good for your website and good for you.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good.
Heartland College Sports, by the way.
When Wiley calls you up, was it conduct he obviously was pissed off, but was he dropping F-bombs? Was it a professional anger or just a very sloppy rage? I'm serious.
No, there were I don't remember a ton of F-bombs at all, but he did call, and I answered the phone, hey, this is Pete, and then he just starts laying into me. He's yelling. He's fired up. And then he's going on this rant about how I shouldn't have asked him about concussions, and I should not have asked him about the 2010 national title game.
Now, did you defend yourself, or did you sit there and take it?
We went back and forth. I was at another job, so I had to step outside. And
you want to step outside?
I said, Tony, let's talk this through here. First off, it was clear the interview was going to be about Texas, and then he said, "Well, that game was almost 10 years ago." I said, "Tony, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're talking about his college career. That happened to be almost 10 years ago. But the timeline is not really relevant in this story. The point is, it's the biggest game of his life. And if he did not want to talk about it, that should have been clear before we went on the air."
I mean, what did Colt McCoy think you were having him on for? To wonder why, would he be a first-round pick in fantasy football? He's a scrub.
And Pete, was the interview contentious with Colt?
No, it was. I mean, we were laughing. If you listen to the interview on Heartland College Sports, I'm laughing, he's laughing. I start off with the Redskins training camp. I lead into, a softball about, how's it being a backup quarterback? You always got to be ready, but it must be tough. One of those, easy questions.
Yeah.
We get into the Big 12 title game in 2009 when they beat Nebraska on a late second field goal where, they put time back on the clock.
Yeah.
The game after that, we talked about the championship game. And then we got into concussions. And at the time, he said, "Wow, we're really going over all the hot topics tonight." And I didn't think much of it.
But is that really a hot topic?
Jeez.
I mean,
that's what I couldn't figure out.
I've been asked that question a million times since the concussion litigation.
You almost expect that it's going to be asked at this point.
Yeah, I had an event last night, and someone asked me that. I mean, so I don't understand why the response, but it is good for you, Pete. So. Let it ride, man.
Now, did Colt snap at you at all? So I know that it was cool and not contentious when you started the interview. You kind of had a little preamble, then you started, because I imagine it was a record, not a live, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay. And you said that he was a little, his antennas went up when you asked about the concussion. But when you hung up, was it like, dude, why'd you do me dirty? What was that like? Nothing. You had no feel until this guy Wiley called you.
We recorded it, and after we got done, I said, Colt, can't thank you enough, man. Really appreciate it. I'm going to have this up tomorrow. If you want to retweet it, fine. If not, no big deal. And, have a great night. And he said, all right, have a good one. Talk to you later. That was it.
All right, then I got a problem with Colt McCoy. Mundo, good stuff. We'll get a little pop out there. We'll actually tweet out the website for you.
Yeah, and the interview.
Good job. Way to stand your ground, pal. I'm proud of you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
See you soon, Pete.
No wusses here at CBS Sports Radio.